Everyone, welcome to my channel. In today's video, I'm very excited to share with all of you my roundup for the month of April. So I'll be running through the products that I tried out this month and going through what my favorites were, what were kind of meh, and basically giving you guys an updated impression after having used these products for around a month. And so April has been a huge month for me in terms of buying makeup. There was the Sephora VIB sale, the Beautylish gift card event, and also multiple Pat McGrath sales. And so there's a lot of products to run through today. So if you're interested in seeing my updated impressions of products from this month, then just stick around. So for today's video, I'm going to start with my favorites and then go into the other products I tried on this month. And I'm going to run through them roughly in the order that I would put them on my face. So my first April favorite is this concealer from Pat McGrath. So I got this in the shade LM10, and ever since I got this product, I've been using it on an almost daily basis, which is saying a lot because I've basically been using the Glossier Stretch Concealer in the shade G8 for the past couple years, basically buying container after container of that, and I haven't really switched up my concealer very much. So I've really been impressed that this one has worked quite well for me, despite the fact that usually liquid concealers just don't really work very well for me. I find this concealer is relatively lightweight, even though it provides pretty significant coverage. I would say though, I actually like it more on the face than I do in the under eye area. I do think my Glossier Stretch Concealer is still a little bit better for that area, just because I do have bags under my eyes, so there's a lot of creasing happening there, and this does make that area look slightly dry. That said, I think this one does provide more coverage and also shears out really nicely. So this has been a really great addition to my collection and has made me more interested in trying out some more liquid concealers. The next favorite I have is these two Mothership palettes from Pat McGrath. So here I have Bronze Seduction and over here is Midnight Sun. So first off, we have Bronze Seduction, which for me is a bit of a surprise favorite. So if you guys haven't checked out my video dedicated to this palette, I've actually had a really rocky relationship with this palette. So this was actually the first Pat McGrath palette I ever picked up back when I was brand new to luxury makeup products, and it just did not work out at all for me. I think I had a dud palette, and so there were a lot of quality issues in terms of patchiness, lack of pigmentation, and glitter fallout everywhere. And so after I tried that palette, I thought that Pat McGrath palettes just really weren't for me, which is kind of ironic because fast forward to today, I have collected almost all of her motherships. And so that's why I decided to pick this guy up again to just see if my impressions have changed. And this one is definitely way higher quality than the previous one I got. And so I found this to just be a really excellent palette, especially as we're going into these summer months. I've really been loving these 4 shades at the bottom in particular. I just find that they are so beautiful and unique. So today I have VR Fire Opal all over the center of my lids and Astral Luna Gold all over the inner corner. And this is just such a beautiful quartet. I also reach for the rose gold shade a lot when I want an everyday glam look. So I've become a huge fan of this quad. A little bit less so, I would say, with the top 6. I still do have a little bit of issues blending out the matte shades. And today I use this cool tone bronze shade all over my lid. And I first tried using a brush with it. It did not pick up with a brush. Then I tried with my finger, but even then I had to really build it up layer by layer. So this shade is probably the one dud I would say is in this palette. But overall, I've been enjoying this palette way more than I did the previous version of this palette that I got. And I'm really excited to now have this in my collection. Next up, we have Midnight Sun, and I used these 2 mattes today in the crease area, and then I used these 2 metallic shimmers on my lower lash line. And I've really been loving this palette as well. I would say it's a little bit more of a fall color story, at least for me, so I have found myself reaching a bit more for Bronze Seduction in comparison to this, but I do just really love the quality of the shadows in this palette and also the versatility in the color story. So you can do looks that are very warm toned or looks that are quite cool toned. You have all these different directions in terms of colors you can draw from this palette. If you do a look just with this palette itself, it can either be more of kind of a very earth toned look if you use these 6 up here paired with these 2 down here, or it can be a bit more moonlight inspired if you really focus on these 4 down here, especially this blue shade. So I really love that versatility, and I've also really been enjoying pairing this with some of my other Pat McGrath palettes. This Taboo shade in particular is a really great neutral transition shade on my lids. The one caveat I would have with this palette is I do find this vermilion shade to be a little bit patchy and hard to build up. The red color doesn't show up very prominently, so if you really want the red to show up, then you have to keep applying it like I did today. So that's the one shade in this palette I haven't had the best luck with, but overall all of these formulas have been really easy to use. For the next category of favorites, let's talk about some makeup brushes. So I hauled a lot of brushes from Wayne Goss and Sonia G as part of the Beautylish gift card event, and I've been really loving several of these. So first off, we have the Wayne Goss number 19 brush, and this is just a tiny little crease brush. And I've been really loving this for outer corner detail work. So this has been the perfect little brush for the deepest shade in my crease area. And I find that this does an excellent job of just laying it down in that area right next to the lash line and blending it up from there. Since I don't have a lot of space in this outer triangle, I think this brush has really changed my makeup game in terms of making it a lot easier to precisely apply shadow there and also deepen it. Because I find with some of my larger crease brushes, they kind of diffuse the pigment out a little bit too much, whereas I do like having that concentrated placement of pigment right in the outer third. Next, I've really been enjoying this Wayne Goss number 20 brush for my lower lash line. So you can see here that this is kind of a small crease brush, the smallest in his eye set, and it has a pretty flat top to it. So whereas the other ones have more of a dome or a point to them, making it easier to use them at an angle, I find with this one, I like using it more straight on to basically apply pigment to the lower lash line. So I like to have a very multi-dimensional lower lash line. So I usually first put down kind of a transition or mid-tone shade, and this is perfect for that. So it lays a decent amount of pigment on, but really blends it out so that you can have that hazy, smoky lower lash line. And then for the rest of my lower lash line work, I've really been loving this Smudger one from Sonia G. So you can see here that this is a nice little smudger brush with a pretty sharp tip to it. And so I like this mostly for some of the detail work in the lower lash line. So after I go in with my Wayne Goss number 20 with the all over shade, I'll use this to pack on some pigment in the outer third just to deepen the lower lash line. And also this is excellent at picking up shimmer and placing it on that little area in the inner third or the inner 2/3 of the lower lash line. My last brush favorite is this Cheek Pro from Sonia G, and this is my first cheek brush from her, and I am absolutely in love with this little cotton ball brush. So this is just such a fun brush to use. It really feels like a little cotton ball that you just bounce on your cheeks, so it really diffuses out the blush extremely well, and you can pick up a lot of product or a little bit of product. Either way, this brush is excellent, and it just provides such a beautiful luxury feeling in addition to function. So the last favorites I have for this month are all in the lip category. So first off, I have the Secret Lover lip gloss from Pat McGrath. So this has just been the perfect everyday spring lip gloss for me. This is in her High Shine formula. So even though if you look very carefully, you can see some shimmer in this tube, overall it comes across as just a really opaque lip gloss on the lips. And this has been perfect for a lot of the pinky, slightly cool toned looks that I've been going for lately. I've really been loving pastel pinks and blues for the spring season. So this has been my go-to lip gloss. Next up, we have this Natasha Denona I Need a Nude Lip Crayon in the shade Naya. So this is the second deepest shade in her line. And if you guys have been watching my channel, you know that for a while now, I've been looking for my perfect brown lip liner. Since I have a bunch of lipsticks that are a little bit too light for my skin tone, So I've been looking for something that can add that contour just to make sure that my lips don't look like they're receding into my skin when I use those lipsticks. And this one has been really excellent. It has a really flattering, deep, rosy brown shade to it. So I find that even though this is significantly darker than my skin tone, it definitely is still quite flattering. And also it's been going really well with some of the brown lip looks that I've been doing lately. And the quality is absolutely impeccable. It really glides on extremely easily. There's no tugging, there's no patchiness as you draw this on your lips. And also it has extremely long wearing power. So when I've swatched this lip liner on my arm and tried washing it off, it was very, very difficult to wash off. So I can definitely attest to the staying power of this lip liner. So even though it's really creamy and easy to glide on, it definitely stays there once it's settled down. And then the last favorite I have for this month is this tiny little mini lipstick from Charlotte Tilbury. And this is in her Pillow Talk Intense formula. And I'm not sure if this video is coming out first or the other video, but I will have a video dedicated just to Pillow Talk because I did buy all of the lip liners and lip cheats in her Pillow Talk mini collection. And also I do have the eyeshadow quad and the cheek to chic. So in case you guys are interested in Pillow Talk, that video is either already out or will be coming very shortly. So of all of the different Pillow Talk lip products, this one was definitely my favorite. So it's actually a lot less deep than you might think. So it's very similar in tone to the Pillow Talk medium. So it provides that berry rose shade, but with a slightly more reddish, brownish undertone to it. And I really love that this is in the Kissing formula, which is Charlotte Tilbury's more comfortable lipstick formula, whereas the other two are in her Matte Revolution formula, which is also comfortable for being a matte, but definitely not as comfortable as this. And so I've been grabbing for this a lot. And I've also really enjoyed pairing this with the Naya lip liner. So if you want a deeper, more contoured look, using this with the Pillow Talk Intense lip liner is a great way to go. Otherwise, if you want something a little bit less deep, then Naya is a good way to go. Or you can just wear this by itself. It's a really beautiful color and really goes with a wide variety of looks. So those were all of my favorites from April. So in the next category, we have items that are close to being favorites, but I feel like I still need to try them out a little bit more just to fully develop my opinion about them. So first off in this category, we have the Charlotte Tilbury Happikiss formula in the shade Passion Kiss. So this is what the shade looks like in the tube. So I really enjoy the shade of this. This is actually what I have all over my lips today. And you can see it's a really beautiful rosy brown tone. It's actually quite similar to Pillow Talk Intense in terms of shade. So I've definitely been going for a specific color story recently. I'm still on the fence about this product because of the packaging. So as you guys can see, even though it looks pretty on the outside, it's actually a really light plastic compact, and the inside is this not super flattering white plastic component. And also this is a click up formula, so basically you click it up and then use that amount, and you don't want to click up too much, otherwise it might melt and get all over the place. But that does mean that when you're putting this on your lips, the product does kind of get all over the sides of this tube, and you can probably see that on this tube over here. And so I'm not a huge fan of how it feels when you're putting it on. It is also fairly wide, given that you are kind of putting the tube right up against your lips, so it's not the most precise lip application. That said, the color is great, and also the formula is quite nice. It's definitely more hydrating than any of her other lip products. It's much more like a slightly sticky, long-lasting lip balm. So it has a lot more staying power than a lip balm does, but it's still pretty hydrating over on the lips. The one caveat I would have in terms of the formula is it does have a tiny bit of stick to it, at least when you first put it on. So if you don't like that, just be a little wary of that aspect. But overall, I do really like the formula and do really like the shade. So that's why this is not quite a favorite, but it's getting up there. Next up, we have this Becca highlighter in the shade Spanish Rose Glow. And I have this highlighter today on my cheekbones, brow bone, and inner corner. And I got a lot of highlighters this month, so I haven't had a lot of time to play around with each of them individually, but I do really enjoy this one. It's very similar to Prismatic Amethyst, my other favorite Becca highlighter in that it has a really beautiful purplish lilac lavender flip to it. But the difference is this one has more base pigment, so it has much more of a rosy base pigment to it, which I think is actually a lot more flattering on my cheeks at least, just because I do have a medium to tan skin tone. So I've really been enjoying this, and I think this is a product that you can either put a pretty light wash on to just have a fairly natural highlighter look, or you can really build this up if you want to have really glowing cheeks. And I've done that in the past, and every time I've looked in the mirror, I've just been like, wow, you know, look at that lavender flip. So I've really been enjoying this, but still need to play around with this a little bit more to fully develop my opinions about it. Next up, we have the other 3 Fude brushes that I got this month. So first off, there's the Sonia G Pencil Pro. And for me, this is a pretty solid pencil brush, definitely the best that I currently own. And I use this today for my inner corner highlight. But I haven't really found the best use case yet for this brush, so I don't find I gravitate to it a ton, just because it's pretty good at inner corner highlight, but I still like my Sonia G Mini Booster a little bit better for that use case. And then this is okay with the lower lash line, but I do prefer the combo of the Wayne Goss number 20 plus the Smudger number 1 brush for the lower lash line area. So I'm basically still kind of figuring out what I like to use this brush for, but it is a really great high quality brush. It's just not exactly a shape that I currently gravitate a lot towards. The next brush is the Wayne Goss number 17 brush. So this is a crease brush that I like using on my outer corner with, say, the second deepest shade or sometimes the deepest shade. And this is the same shape as my Wayne Goss number 4 brush, which is in Squirrel Hair. And for me, this is a brush I'm still kind of figuring out the technique for. So I find that I do like my Wayne Goss number 4 a little bit better than this when it comes to placing shadow in the outer third. This one's solid, but not as good as that one. And it's also not as good as the Wayne Goss number 16 in terms of overall transition, or the Wayne Goss number 19 in terms of the deepest shade. So it's kind of in this intermediate position right now where it's sitting between a bunch of brushes that I like just a little bit more than it. So I find I don't get a ton of use from it as a result. But it's still in the early days, and I'll have to play around with this brush a bit more to see if there's things that this brush can do better than my other brushes. The last brush I picked up this month was the Wayne Goss number 12 brush. And this is mainly for sculpting the face, so this is an excellent bronzer brush. And I overall really enjoy this brush. I would say when I first got it, before I washed it, it was a little bit tightly packed such that it would move around a lot of the base pigment when I was adding my bronzer on top. Now that it's fluffed out a bit, it doesn't do that as much. But it's still a little bit heavy-handed, I would say, in the bronzer placement. So this is a really excellent brush if you have more of a baked formula or any sort of formula that's a little bit more sheer and harder to pick up. If you have a very pigmented bronzer though, this might be a little bit too heavy-handed in the pickup. But overall, I do really enjoy this brush, but it's not quite at the favorite level yet. So the last product in this proto favorite category is the Danessa Myricks Colorfix matte formula in the shade Desert Rose. And I've only used this product twice, so I have it on my cheeks today, and this is just the second time I've used this. So it's not a favorite because I really need to play around with it more. But this is definitely a product that kind of pushes me a little bit out of my comfort zone because it is a cream product. So typically I am a powder girl all the way. So other than concealer, I basically never use cream or liquid products. And so this is quite different for me. And it's also extremely pigmented. So you do have to be quite careful when using this product. That said, I have been very impressed with how easily this product blends out. So you just need the tiniest amount in order to have a really beautiful flush cheek look. And I also, in a previous video, put this all over my lid and did more of a monochromatic look and really enjoyed that look as well. It does crease though on the lids, so be aware of that if you want to use this primarily as an eyeshadow. Personally, I enjoy this a little bit more as a blush product, and I find this shade especially is just very perfect for a nice rosy flush. So I'm looking forward to playing around with this product a bit more. So now for the final category of products from this month. So I would describe these as solid products that maybe in another month could have possibly been a favorite, but they're not really wowing me, especially given all the competition this month. Fortunately, I didn't have any fails this month, so I would definitely recommend any of the products in this video. So to start off this final set, we first have the Pat McGrath Fleur Fantasia palette. And so I got this palette heavily discounted from Pat McGrath's website, and I would say for the price that I paid, which was like $30 to $40, it was definitely worth it. It's a really beautiful palette that is perfect for the spring, and especially I really love the lavender blue shade and the iridescent orchid shade. I would say this matte is also really solid and quite similar to a lighter version of Naked Blush from Divine Rose 2. This shade, Utopia, was not very impressive, at least on my skin tone, but overall it is a pretty solid palette. Basically no depth in this palette though, so I would definitely recommend pairing this palette with another palette unless you are pretty fair, because at least on my lids, if I use all of these shades just by themselves, there's not much dimension and it's not really easy to see all of these shades distinctively. Whereas if you pair this with another palette like Divine Rose 2, I think you can get a really gorgeous springtime look. Next, we have this tiny little Surratt blush. So this is the first Surratt product I've ever tried, and I've heard really amazing things about all of his products and especially his blushes. So I figured I would give this guy a try. I would say that I'm still not totally sold on this formula. This shade Rougeur is extremely similar to the Desert Rose shade that I have on today, but this is much harder to work with than the Danessa Myricks Colorfix formula. I really like the finish that this blush provides if you do manage to blend it out. It has that kind of satin, silky finish to it, so that's really beautiful. And it's also very pigmented, so if you have a deeper complexion, this would be a great product to try out. My problem though with this formula is I find it quite difficult to blend out. So if you don't have a really matte canvas, so if you have a lot of skincare on or you haven't powdered and you have a lot of base products that have a little bit of tackiness to them, this will definitely cling to all of that. And so for me personally, as someone who doesn't use a lot of powder and doesn't use a lot of base product, I find that this always sticks to my skincare. And so that's something I'm not a huge fan of with this product. I find I can still kind of make it work by spending a lot of time blending it out. But, you know, for an everyday basis, I want something a lot simpler. So that's my caveat with this product. But I'm still playing around with it and seeing if there's a way that I can make this work out for me. Next, we have two more highlighters. First, we have Lilac Geode from Becca. And this is just such a gorgeous highlighter packaging. I mean, I love the geode pattern here. I love how this is kind of a purple compact and it's different from the typical Becca highlighter compact. So I was really excited to pick this highlighter up. I would say the shade is a little bit less interesting to me than I expected. It's sort of a pink base with a golden flip to it. And so on my skin, at least, it basically just looks like a peachy gold highlighter, which is really nice. I'm not knocking that, but personally, I've just not been in the mood recently for that kind of highlighter, which is why I haven't been using this a ton. But this is a really lovely highlighter in Becca's great formula, and so I would still recommend this product. The last highlighter I got was the Bobbi Brown Pink Glow Mini Highlighter, and I picked this up because I was really curious about the Bobbi Brown formula, and also because I've been looking for a highlighter that has a really nice pink flip to it. So unfortunately, this does not have a pink flip, so it was a little bit disappointing in that regard. And it's also quite light on my skin, which looking at it in pan now, I'm like, okay, what did I expect? It's basically a white highlighter with a little bit of pink in it. So I really love this formula, and I'm glad I tried this out because this has made me really interested in the Bobbi Brown highlighter formula generally. This formula kind of reminds me of the Divine Rose highlighter from Pat McGrath in that it looks very, very natural on the skin, but you can also build it up to have a bit more luminosity. The only issue I have with this is basically the shade itself is a little bit too light and doesn't have much pink to it. But otherwise, this has made me a fan of the Bobbi Brown highlighters. Finally, we have the rest of the lip products that I picked up this month. So first off, we have this Blitztrance lipstick from Pat McGrath that I got in the shade Skin Flixx. And this is a really gorgeous lipstick. I have nothing bad to say about the formula or the shade. It's just not something I've really been gravitating towards. I would say that because this is a shade that is quite similar to a nude, but has that sort of rose gold metallic finish. It's in this sort of in-between zone where if I'm going for a nude, I'm not gonna go for this. And if I'm going for something really shiny and high impact, I probably would use a different shade as well. So I think I probably in hindsight should have picked a Blitztrance formula that's in a more eye-catching shade, just because I was playing it safe a little bit by choosing one that is relatively everyday in tone, but the finish itself is just not everyday, and so it's made it hard for me to place when and where I would wear this lip product. But this is a really gorgeous formula, looks beautiful if you want that kind of metallic lip look, and also is very comfortable on the lips. And as I mentioned at the top, I got all of the mini lip products from Charlotte Tilbury's Pillow Talk collection. So I was really curious to try out Pillow Talk Original, Medium, and Intense. And for a long time, I was debating about which of these three to pick up. And so then when she came out with minis in her Pillow Talk Medium and Intense line, she had always had a mini of the original. But I decided, okay, why not? I'm just gonna pick up all of them and do some swatches and do some comparisons. So here we are with all of these little guys. And I would say that I really like the Pillow Talk Intense, as I mentioned earlier in this video. With Pillow Talk Medium and Pillow Talk Original, because they're in the matte formula, I don't think I'm gonna reach for them as much. They're still really beautiful colors, and so I'm glad I have them in my collection, but they're not the most comfortable and also not the most flattering tones on my skin. And also these little minis are not really the best quality, I would say. So those are the caveats I would say with these products. In terms of the lip cheats, these are really similar to her full-size lip cheats, so I definitely recommend these. The packaging looks about the same, just a little bit smaller. So if you're not someone who finishes your lip liners very often, then these minis are really perfect. I put these in this category though, just because I'm not a huge lip liner person, and so I don't anticipate getting a ton of use out of these. That said, I think these are still a great formula and do a good job of expanding the number of colors in my collection for a relatively affordable price. So that's it for the whirlwind of my April roundup. So I tried a ton of products this month, and as you guys saw, I'm still kind of formulating my opinions about some of them. So I'll have to update you guys as time goes in terms of how these products are performing for me. I already have a lot of products that are going into my May roundup video, so definitely subscribe down below if you're interested in hearing about the Charlotte Tilbury brow products, the Look in a Palette, and all of the Pat McGrath mini lip products. Those will all be in May's video. So thank you all so much for joining me today, and if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. I really appreciate all the support, and I'll catch you guys next time. Bye!